All right, what's up, guys? So back for another edition. I hope you guys checked out the first, say, handful of videos, talking a little bit about periodization programming. But now I'm going to kind of shift focus. This is going to be a little shorter video, and the goal of today is to kind of explain to you what the exercise tempo is, kind of what it is. And kind of some of the benefits of using it and implementing it in your programs. So what is exercise tempo? So the tempo is pretty much the pace at which a repetition of an exercise is performed. So typically in a program, I will lay out a 4-digit kind of sequence included with the exercise, the rest period, reps, sets, etc. And this indicates the tempo at which an exercise is executed. So just to clarify, in the 4-digit number, they all indicate different portions of the exercise. So specifically the first number, so in this example, the number 4, indicates the eccentric speed. So in this case, it would be a 4-second eccentric. So let's say, for our example, we're doing a squat, barbell squat. Well, you would lower into the bottom position of the squat in 4 seconds. The second number is the isometric, or I kind of look at it as more as a stretch position. So in this example, there's no time spent in the stretch. So for the case of the squat, you lower in 4 seconds. As soon as you reach the bottom position, you come back up. Okay. But I'll give you an example. Let's say something like a lat pull down, okay, or even a chin up. Let's say you do a 4-second eccentric, you get to the bottom position. I may change the number to 2, so 4-2x1. So that just means you hold the stretch position for 2 seconds before performing another repetition. The third number is the concentric speed. Generally, it's either going to be an X or a 1. X just means explosively. 1 is more like a slower rep, kind of control, try to feel it a little bit more, but still perform quickly. The only time I might change that, it might be, let's say if I'm doing a static dynamic where I pause on the concentric before completing the repetition. But generally, it's either an X or a 1. It's just something where you push the weight as quickly as you can. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I've seen some people, they don't necessarily prescribe a 4-digit kind of sequence, just because the concentric is normally always performed explosively. So what they'll just do is on the side of the program, they might note either a 4-second eccentric or a 2-second isometric pause, whatever it may be. I like to include the four-digit number. That's kind of how I've always done it. And if there's any confusion, I would add notes. For example, 2-second pause on a concentric. The fourth number, the last one, is the isometric, or the pause in the contracted position. So let's say for the squat, again, you hold the top position for 1 second, just kind of reset, which is very, very general or very normal. But let's say for a bicep curl, okay, where you really want to focus on the peak contraction, you might include a 2-second pause at the top. Same thing for, generally I like to use it for the back. Let's say a back extension or a dumbbell row, where you hold the peak contraction kind of isometrically, because in a lot of the cases, let's say for sports and hockey, you're essentially holding an isometric, like good morning. So the back is held isometrically for long durations. And for the case of powerlifting, same thing. You're trying to support the load with the spine, and it's just held isometrically. So typically for those exercises, I would like to include pauses in the contracted position. So I'm going to show a couple examples. The first one here, I'm using accentuated eccentric. So I'm doing a leg curl concentrically with two legs, and then I'm eccentrically coming down with one leg. Well, what you see is I use a 6-0-1-1 tempo. Again, the emphasis is primarily on the eccentric, so I could have just written on the program 6-second eccentric. So if you watch, I go up, one leg down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and another repetition. So again, you see, perform very, very slowly. Now, for the case of, let's say, just purely thinking about strength, I kind of generally don't like to focus on specific tempo. When I write a 2-second eccentric, it essentially just means under control. So I don't really count in my head. All I think about is kind of going down under control and explosively completing the rep. So for the dips, you'll see. So again, in my head, I'm not really thinking about a tempo. I'm just, let's just get as many reps as I can. And as you see, I spend no time at the bottom, and I explosively try to come up. There. So now, why use a tempo? Tempos are a great way to emphasize a specific contraction. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about each contraction in future videos, but by prescribing a tempo, you're allowing your athlete or maybe fellow coaches know that, okay, we're targeting eccentric strength, or we're targeting isometric in the stretch position. It's just a great way of kind of giving more of a detailed outline of what is expected. Tempos are also great for increasing eccentric and isometric strength, and I'll talk about each of those individually later on in another video. And both of those types of strength can limit the athlete's ability to generate force. So again, we'll talk about it later. By using a tempo, you're able to elicit specific training effects. So let's say if you're using a fast eccentric, you might include the stretch reflex, which is more geared towards, let's say, speed work. For example, let's say dynamic effort squats, where you're using overspeed eccentrics, you're using elastic bands. You don't want to go perform the eccentric slowly, because you want to elicit a strong stretch reflex to concentrically produce as much force as you can. So by, let's say, prescribing a tempo of X1, that would indicate, okay, we're explosively going down and explosively coming up. Or on the contrary, you might want to use slow eccentric to increase eccentric strength. So like in my like in the video, you might include a 6-second eccentric. Tempos are also a great way of manipulating the time under tension. So let's say for hypertrophy or muscle building reasons, you might manipulate the tempo to elicit a different, let's say, different hypertrophic response. So let's say a slower eccentric with more muscle damage, but let's say for more pump or smaller isolation exercises, you might include a faster tempo. Both of these cases, the repetitions would change based off these tempos. So let's say a 4-1-1-1 tempo with 7 seconds per rep, that might be between 5 to, let's say, 5 to 7 reps, whereas a 2-0-X1 tempo with 3 seconds per rep might be something like, say, 12 to 15 reps. So you see, the tempo can dictate the reps and even sometimes the exercise. And then finally, tempo is a great way to improve and teach technique and motor patterns. So I remember hearing, I believe it was the Squat University podcast, and Ed Cohen was a guest on it. And he talked about using a 10-second eccentric squat. So essentially lowering into the bottom position of the squat within 10 seconds to improve his technique. he would consciously think about every part of his body and kind of how his feet were positioned, how his knees were tracking, what was his chest position like. So by slowing down the movement, he was able to consciously ingrain and improve his technique. So thank you guys for watching. Again, as always, if you guys have any questions, my emails are there, my Instagram's there. And also, if you find this interesting, stay tuned for the next couple of videos as I'll kind of explain more about the eccentric and isometric components and how to and why they're important for increasing performance. So take care, guys. I'll see you next time.